This is the little character that we made for Digital Biscuit in 2014, January 2014, over in Dublin. And this is the series of videos that we use as part of the demonstration, and it basically goes through how we created him from a sphere in ZBrush. This is obviously I'm speeding this video up simply because it's you don't want to sit through 2 hours of us making him. So here you can see a little bit of the process, starting off with using reference planes in ZBrush, which is not something that everybody knows about. Obviously, if you've been 3D modeling for quite some time, you'll understand about putting side and back reference images into your viewports. That's pretty much the same in Maya or 3D Studio Max, or pretty much any 3D software. But this is a way to do it in ZBrush, and this is what we were showing the people in the session, that is a very quick way of making characters, and not just free-forming it on screen with no reference. So we're literally got the back and the side images. We're using a sphere that's got Dynamesh on it, or it's not Dynamesh on it, but it's using the Dynamesh feature, which is ZBrush's really powerful way of distributing the the topology, not the edge loops, in such a way that allows you to carry on modeling and moving and adding without worrying about stretching polygons. So as you can see there, I've very quickly, within a matter of minutes, roughed out the head, the horns, the ears, where the eyes are going to go. And it's all proportionally accurate straight away. I'm popping in a couple of eyes just to use as reference sculpts. So as with any other types of modeling, if you're doing something like eyes, it's great to put the eyes in there and sculpt around them, simply because you get the shapes right rather than trying to do it just from guesswork. Using Dynamesh really, it's revolutionary. It's changed the way I model. It's changed the way a lot of people model, simply because we're doing it another way around from how we used to and how we've been trained to do it. So in the past, we would box model, slowly but surely building up parts of the eye, the nose, the ears, working from reference like I am here. But with ZBrush, it's so much faster because we can just rough out the shapes and then do what we're going to do here, which is once we've got the basic shape, we just remesh it and retopologize it right here in ZBrush. So what used to take me a couple of days will probably take me a couple of hours, which is what this project was. And already you can see within a matter of minutes, it is literally forming the shape that we're going to go for. You can see where what I'm doing now on screen is just moving the bulk of the form into the right positions. Not overly worried about the details yet. I'm just literally just getting bulks of muscle and cheek folds and the lumps of skin all in the right place. You can turn the reference images on and off. You can turn perspective on and off as if you're going to work from an orthographic front and side. What I've just done there is masked off the entire head and just left a little piece unmasked underneath, and then pulling that down using the move tool, I can then Dynamesh it, which then redistributes the mesh again, and straight away we've got a body added on, and it's remeshed. I use a combination of Dynamesh and remesh all the time, and this video is pretty much just using Dynamesh. So quite often it's good to work out which one you want to use and why. So the Dynamesh is great for like free forming as we are here, and it pretty much, as you can see, it's creating that form in no time at all. With the remesher, you could, instead of Dynameshing at all of these points, which is when you see the stretched polygons turning into well distributed polygons, at that point you could remesh, and that's just something you'll learn over time if you try this. You can see at the bottom of my screen there, I only use very minimal tools, and when I'm training ZBrush, I generally only teach 4 or 5 brushes to try and keep students, you just get them familiar with these literally few tools, and that's pretty much all you need to get going with ZBrush. And one of the things that people do wrong is they try and use all the millions of tools that are in there, thousands of tools that are in there. And it's great if you can just be limited to a set number of tools and get to a skill level with those, and then start expanding out and trying the different tools and different settings. So really all I'm using here is clay build up, the move tool, a little bit of standard brush, and the inflate. And that's pretty much all you've seen me using so far. So combine that with Dynamesh and remesher, and that's pretty much all you need. So again, the same as in days gone by where we would model with reference planes. I'm literally just following the side, using shift to snap to the front and the side as needed. I'm not modeling in perspective here. It's an isometric perspective, which basically means when I snap it, you see right through in a level orthographic way, and that helps you to get these shapes right. And then at the end of this little section, I'll switch it to going into perspective and cleaning it up and just adding a little bit of you always lose quite a bit really between side and front projections. You won't get the true 3D feel that you want, so it's always good to just use that as a base. You can see there using up building up the little strokes using the clay build up. It's probably the easiest way of adding volume. It looks a bit rough, and then I just use smooth by holding down the shift key and just smooth it down. But it's almost like when we first got the access to these kind of brushes. I think it was called the rake brush, and we would just be raking into what would be like a piece of clay, and that pretty much turned into what it is now, which is the clay build up, even though rake's still there. But you can see I'm just going back over it now. I've got the full body done. I'm just going back now and cleaning it up. The full volume's there already, and it's just a case now of going in and getting the forms right. The badly distributed polygons are what Dynamesh do, but it gives you polygons to work on. So at this point we're not worried about topology at all. We're not worried about the edge loops around the arms, not worried about anything. The next part is when we start worrying about those things. So now we've got the rough shape. What we'll do is we'll give it some help in making the topology. So I'm literally drawing curves onto the model that I've roughed out. And what that's doing is it's saying to ZBrush, I want to remesh this character, and I want you to respect those curves and treat them as fixed edge loops. So I'm drawing around the mouth, the nose, giving it a rough indication of where I want the lines to go around the belly, a full loop around the thigh, and then full loop around the knee, which it would do anyway usually. And you can see not many, literally takes 2 minutes, and that just tells it roughly where you want to add those loops. And with one click of a button there, you can see it's remeshed it. So, and that looks much more like the more traditional polygons that you would want. Now, if you happen to want to distribute it differently than that, what you can do is do what I'm doing now, which is part of the Z remesher gives you the ability to paint on in red or blue using poly paint where you would want higher amounts of polygons or distributed in a different way. And as you can see there, wherever you put red, it made it extremely dense. The video is a bit compressed there, so you might not be able to see. You can see around the mouth there's a lot more in the way of edge loops. So because it's extreme from red to blue, if you use pink, it distributes it less. If you use a light blue, it does the opposite. So what we used is a combination of little pink colours that just said, right, can I please have a bit more definition around the lips, the nose, the eyes, and that's what we did. I change materials quite regularly just to see what the material and the lighting's doing. And what I've done now is I've gone up a resolution on the new remeshed character, and I'm just adding the volume that's been lost, going back in and just cleaning it up, and now doing making sure that the eyelids fit around the eyes correctly, making sure that the nose is the correct volume. And you're already into a little bit of detailing, which again, if sometimes you wouldn't start this for quite a while. but because you've got a fairly accurate base mesh already, and you might want to remesh again and again. It's simply as you improve it. What I tend to do is probably do 3 or 4 remeshes in a session like this, until I get quite close. And you can save these iteratively as well. So if there is a time when you end up doing a really nice bit of sculpting, you can save that and project it back on later. But because these are quick sculpts to get approval, and to see if you can get close to the agreed artwork, it's such an easy way of doing it. You can knock out quite a few of these in a morning, to talk to an art director about what he actually wants, and then actually play with the model and see about volumes and see about things like the neck and the thickness of the neck and how it works against the supplied concept art. So I'm just carrying on building up more and more bulk around the areas that I know will need it. So making sure that the blobbiness of sometimes ZBrush can look very blobby in its models. So I'm just getting rid of that blobbiness and then adding in correct muscle sizes. And obviously this is a cartoon character, probably for TV kind of level. So we don't want a lot of realistic muscles in it. I'm not looking for any really human looking muscle groups. It's just an idea or an indication of where you'd want them. And I'm still off screen here, I'm looking at the reference material, and just making sure that it looks more and more like the concept art. And as it happens, I drew this concept art anyway, so it's a design that I'm familiar with. It's changed a lot through the design, because what ZBrush gives you is the ability to concept on the fly, really. So you're finding whether a character works as you're sculpting it, instead of just working from the supplied drawings. You can adjust your character actually as you're making it. Obviously, if you've got a very firmly agreed character and a firmly agreed design, then you're not going to get that opportunity. But it's nice when you're allowed to experiment. And you can see there the topology divided up several times, but based off quite a nice clean topology. It's not as clean as I would want it. There are some things that would need cleaning up. So you can see here I've gone in and I'm just literally starting to look at splitting it in half. This is actually a silo I was doing this with. I generally use Maya now or 3ds Max, just to get it rig ready, really. So I'd clean up the model by splitting it in half, because it's symmetrical, and then go in and just check that the center seam is 100% loop all the way around the center. And what you'll see me do now is just go in with a number of tools. It's just cut and split, and I'm going to put a central edge loop all the way around, up through the head, down the back of the body, down between the legs. And I'm just checking as well, because I've got a real passion for modeling where everything's quads. So I'll generally now go in and I'll start searching for any triangles and getting rid of those and just going for quads. And that's a bit of advice I always give students, is that and unless you're in gaming where you'll use a lot of triangles, it's best to go 100% quads. And 100% quads gives you 100% triangles evenly. So if you make a character that's 1,000 quads, then you've got 2,000 triangles. So it's very predictable. And if you absolutely do need triangles, then you put them in areas where it's not going to cause any damage at render time. So you put them inside eyes or behind ears or anywhere that's not going to cause any kind of artifacts. So you literally just hunt round and just bear in mind that this topology has been created by the software. You haven't actually built this software, topology. So really, it's just spending like 20 minutes, half an hour, just cleaning it up and getting the edge loops where you'd want it. And what you can do is, if you've done a really nice sculpt, you can go back once this is finished and reproject that sculpt onto this mesh. So you're not wasting any of the work that you've done. If you spent hours doing a sculpt, you're just giving it a nice clean base mesh to project back onto. So here now we're keeping that central seam all snapped pretty much to the center, so 0 on X. And I'm just literally, I've highlighted it in red just to show where I'm putting edge loops, which is quite standard edge loops, inside the nostrils, down the cheek fold, and then obviously the eye just needs a little bit of cleanup just to make sure that you've got the full loop all the way around the eye for the eyelid, to be able to compress over the to blink. You can see I'm just literally pecking through, taking out any unwanted polygons and just making it the full loop all the way around. It's very crucial to get the eyelid right, simply because a lot of the expression of the character comes from the eyes. You want to be able to have really good blinks, and you want to be able to do emotion with the eyes. So that eyelid's got to have plenty of polygons to allow it to close, and it's got to obviously to not have any stretching issues. So it's great to put loads of detail and loads of attention really on the upper part of the eyelid and a little bit of the lower. You can see that I've just flooded it by mistake there. So we're almost done on the eye now, and just cleaning up round that edge loop round the top into the forehead. I probably would want to put more. If this was a character that's going to do a lot of facial animation, and you're going to do a lot of close-ups on the face, which we never planned to with this one, then we'd probably put a lot more detail in that upper lid and maybe model it half closed so that the texture stretching is minimal when the eyelid blinks. And you can see what I'm doing there with the triangles that have appeared. I'm just literally going in and making them quads and making them follow edge loops all the way around. Pretty much any 3D software will allow you to do this. It's just a couple of simple tools for splitting and joining really. And it's called different things in different programs, but generally the split or split loop and cut is obviously one. I'm just popping another eye in, again just to make sure, as I did with the original model, just to make sure that everything is fitted. So these are just temporary eyes, they're not the ones that we use for the final model. But again, as I said at the start, the reason that I show people to do that is that if you're going to model an eyelid, the best thing to do is to model it around an eyeball, simply because it's definitely the way to go. So we're carrying on down the back, and I'm making sure, I always like to have a single edge loop that goes all the way around the body, as I say, and you can see there, and I've coloured it red just to show, but the loop goes all the way down, all the way up the front and all the way down the back, and just makes it very predictable. And so I'll just fix the eye just doesn't fit there, so we'll just make sure it fits, the eyelid doesn't fit around the eye. So it's just a case of tweaking that new geometry and using the smooth tools. You can do this once you've got your geometry in a good position. You can go back into ZBrush and do this. It's totally up to you, and the workflow is this is almost like as if you've box modeled it from scratch now. Anyway, the reason this is helpful is that you've cut out the first half a day of modeling really by just giving yourself a chunk of polygons that are all ready to work on. So just tightening up around the ear. Again, just going to go keep checking the whole body really to make sure that we've got enough of a decent set of edge loops all around the model to be able to do whatever we need it to do, and just focus on the areas that you really want to animate a lot. So obviously face is one that will get a lot of attention, fingers and hands quite a bit. So there you see, it didn't take long. We've got the body with a nice set of edge loops, ready to go back into whatever program you want next, really. So now there's a couple of ways to texture something like this, but what it needs is a set of good UVs. One of the tools, one of the pieces of software that we always use, is this, which is called Hedis UV Layout. And it basically gives you it's great for organic characters. One, you can use it symmetrically, as you see there. The grade outside isn't being worked on. And there's two components to Hedis, which is this bit, which is where you define where you want your splits. This isn't affecting the model at all. It looks like it's breaking it down, but it's not touching it at all. It's just telling the software where you want to split everything off. So like the neck there, I just split the neck off and then opened it up at the back, split the hand off, and on the arm I'd split the arm underneath and hide the seams as much as possible. The hands, split them top and bottom. When the piece disappears, that means I'm just sending it off to another part of the program. Just running a split all the way through the fingers, back to front, hide them, or not hide them, send them off. Split the body back to front, send them off. Now the head, you can't really split that in half if you want to paint it in Photoshop. You want it flattened. If you're going to paint in Mari or just paint in ZBrush or Mudbox, you probably don't need to worry so much about the seams these days. Certainly not for as much as we used to. Simply because you might never ever have to paint on a flattened image or a flattened texture. I always like to do it simply because it's the way I've always done it, and it always gives me the ability to paint a nicely flattened out texture really. Just split the mouth bag in half there. Split out the nostrils and send them away. We're nearly there now with this one. Take out the eye sockets and just put some nice seams in there. Split the head back and front, there's no issue with that. And back's never really a worry unless you're going to do lots of work around them. Quite often with most characters there's hair anyway that takes a lot of the problems away. And the last bit is just the face. Just send that away and we'll go to the next part. So just putting some splits just to open that up a little bit more when it goes to be flattened. And you'll see what that means in a minute. So that's the full character with the seams on it. Most of the seams are at the back or hidden. And then you go to this part really, which is over in the display tab. And then we just, a set of key commands, we just stretch out the pieces to ready to put it into the 0, 1 space. It's actually doing it on the fly, and you can see the colours there. You've got blue, green and red, and that gives you greens being good, red and blue meaning it's either stretched or it's compressed, so you actually know whether you've got a problem. So you can see there the toes are going to be a little bit of a problem, so with a simple stroke of the key we can smooth those areas out. All I'm doing here is just manually trying to work out where I would want it on a UV space. I'm only going to do like an 8K, well between 4 or an 8K depending on what I use it for, map on this. So I'm only going to put the whole of the UVs in a single UV space. If you use multiple UDIMs, which means that red box can be timesed across to the left, to the right, sorry, and then up as well, the boxes can be as many as you want. And then programs like Mari and using a combination of Mari and Maya, you can have extremely high-res textures on a single mesh, and you just paint across the seams in the software, depending on the level you want to go to really, and the level of output that you want. If you're looking at a high-end film, you could have 30-40 UDIMs just for one character, and the patches would have to be all very, very high resolution. You can see there the face has been stretched out. Didn't quite work out how I wanted it, so what I did was I sent it back to the other part of the program and I split off the nose, and then sent it back into this part and then re-stretched everything out. You can see there the red areas, I'm using just a brush just to relax them, to get rid of the redness, which is obviously means it's a problem. The darker the red or the darker the blue, that means the more stretching or the more pinching that you're going to get, and you need to work out whether that's going to be a problem for you with your textures. Obviously, like in a lot of programs, you can apply a checker map right here in Headers, and the checker map will tell you whether there's stretching. But if you know that the red and the blue are minimized, then there will be minimal stretching anyway. And because you've defined where you want the seams quite early on, then you're not really going to have major problems with it. And planning your character like this is probably the way to solve a lot of problems. You can do this automatically. You can just hit a button which will pack it. But if you've gone to the trouble of making your own UVs, it's only polite that you do it yourself. And you can you sometimes develop a way of laying things out that suits you or suits your needs, rather than letting it just randomly pack it all into one square. The only thing I do with the character is always make sure that each of the pieces stays relatively the same size, so I'm not stretching any piece bigger than the other piece, which would mean if I painted across from the thigh to the belly, there would be a differential in size. So each of these pieces is relatively the same size as it was, even though we've crushed the whole thing down. The reason it's gone red is because we've shrunk the whole piece down. And then just save that out, and that's the UV set done for the character. And that this character, we painted him in, there's the wireframe, we painted him in ZBrush. We just saved out that wireframe template, which then allows us to take it very easily into Photoshop and just paint on that as well. But as I say, most of this texture was done in ZBrush anyway, and he ended up looking like that. I hope that's been helpful. That's pretty much what we showed at Digital Biscuit, and hopefully we can we'll do it again next year.